Welcome back to this series of videos where we're talking about the different dysfunctions that can occur within our teams. Today we're going to talk about one that's really common. Okay. And once our team has started to begin this process of building trust, it's time to think about how they're going to leverage that trust, how they're going to use it, how they're going to use it productively to move themselves forward. And it's really important because this is a requirement for overcoming that fear of conflict. So when we talk about conflict on a team, we're talking about that productive, ideological conflict, that passionate, unfiltered debate around issues that are really important to them. And any team that wants to maximize its effectiveness needs to learn to do this. And doing so can only happen if vulnerability-based trust exists. So that's not to say that some teams that lack trust don't argue. It's just that arguments are often destructive because they are laced with politics, pride, and competition rather than just humble pursuit of the truth. So when people who don't trust one another engage in passionate debate, they are trying to win the argument. They aren't usually listening to the other person's ideas and then reconsidering their point of view. What they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out how to manipulate that conversation to get what they want. Or worse yet, they're not even arguing with the person face to face, but venting about it in the hallways and, after meetings. In contrast to this, when we've got that vulnerability-based trust, team members say everything that needs to be said, and there is nothing left to talk about behind closed doors. So it brings us onto the concept of that inevitability of discomfort. So I've probably made conflict sound a little bit too easy so far, but the fact is that even among the best teams, conflict is always at least a little bit uncomfortable. And you've got to get used to that sort of uncomfortable feeling within the team. No matter how clear everyone is that the conflict they're engaging in is focused on issues and not personalities, it is inevitable that they will feel under some degree of personal attack. It's just unrealistic for a person to say, look, I'm sorry, Johnny, but I don't agree with your approach to the project, and then not expect Johnny to feel some degree of personal rejection. But that is no reason to avoid conflict. In fact, if team members are not making one another a little bit uncomfortable at times, if they're not pushing one another outside of those emotional comfort zones during those discussions that they're having, then it's quite likely that they're not making the best decisions for the organization. And one way that we know a team is having enough conflict is for them to think about how an outsider to that team would feel sitting in on a meeting. So a great team will look at least a little strange to an outsider who isn't accustomed to the direct and unfiltered dialogue that's happening and taking place. So like a friend invited to dinner at a close family's house, they would probably be a little taken aback, at least at first. So the big question here is, how do we avoid the conflict getting personal? And the answer has a few different angles. First, based on my experiences of working with different military teams, and also different corporate teams, it's extremely rare that people attack each other openly on a personal level. In fact, I think I can only recall probably a handful, if that, of instances in which a teammate stepped over the line and made it personal. And even in those cases, it was still really, really mild. The bigger problem amongst most teams is that they never get close to anything remotely resembling personal conflict. Think about conflict this way. So imagine a continuum, and there should be a little diagram that flicks up in the top of the screen. On one end, there's an artificial harmony, and in that artificial harmony, we've got no conflict at all. But then on the other end, we've got that personal attack and that mean-spirited type of conflict. And in the exact middle of that continuum, there's a line where conflict goes from constructive to destructive, or vice versa. It can equally move backwards, depending on which direction the team are going. Now, the vast majority of teams I've encountered live close to that harmony end of the scale, fearing that any movement towards the middle is one step closer to murder. Theoretically, the best place on the continuum is close to the middle, just to the left of this dividing line. This is the point where having every bit of constructive conflict possible without stepping over that line into destructive territory. In reality, however, this isn't possible. Even the best teams will rarely, but occasionally, step over that line. And that's not only okay, it actually can be a good thing, as long as they've committed to working through it. Because when a team recovers from that sort of incident, and recovers from that destructive conflict, it builds a confidence that it can then survive. So we've had some sort of shock event, it reinforces with the team that they're able to survive that component of that conflict. So it's not unlike you and your partner having a massive blowout, massive argument, and then developing closer ties and greater confidence in your relationship as a result. There are a range of different ways that we can work toward achieving the right balance with this conflict. And these can include things like profiling, normalizing these conflict discussions within team meetings, or even a concept called conflict mining from our leaders and managers. Some really key points, however, to remember are that good conflict among team members requires that trust, which is all about engaging in the unfiltered, passionate debate around issues. Even among the best teams, conflict will at times be uncomfortable, and that conflict norms, although they will vary from team to team, must be discussed and made clear among the team. The fear of occasional personal conflict should not deter a team from having regular, productive debate. Whistle-stop tour of conflict within our teams. All of our team sessions touch on the concepts of around conflict, and we build in different components and activities that can help you and your team work towards developing that constructive conflict and having those conversations and those unfiltered, passionate debates to stop you from going over that line too far. Get in touch if you want to book a team day. Follow the links or search for us on the internet at propellerteamtraining.co.uk.